Eric Swalwell, the former future president, the man who would have been president if he wasn't one of the first people to drop out of the 2020 Democratic primary. Eric Swalwell, who infamously seems to have slept with a Chinese spy. Eric Swalwell thinks it's insane that you want to have a say over your kids' education. Eric Swalwell tweeted out yesterday, this was in response to Tim Scott, Republican senator, saying that we're putting parents back in charge of their kids' education. He says, please tell me what I'm missing here. What are we doing next? Putting patients in charge of their own surgeries? Clients in charge of their own trials? When did we stop trusting experts? Period. By the way, he didn't have a question mark at the end of that question, just a period. That's from expert Eric Swalwell. This is so stupid. So just in point of fact, patients are generally in charge of their own medical care. They go out and they hire a doctor. They go out and they consult and they get different opinions, and then they say, okay, maybe I'll have this surgery, maybe I'll have this procedure. And clients generally are in charge of their own legal representation. They hire a lawyer or they represent themselves, but they're the ones ultimately in charge. But this is what they think of you. This is what they think. They think that not only do you not have the right to your right to keep and bear arms, not only do you not have the right to free speech, not only do you not have the right to make your views known in the public square, you don't even have a right to raise your kids. Education means raising up, means leading out, means it's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's the whole process of forming a person, of leading them. That comes from the root for leading. And what Eric Swalwell is saying is, you don't have the right to any say in that. We do. I do. I, Eric Swalwell, who doesn't know how to use question marks, I, Eric Swalwell, am going to educate your children. Tell me what I'm missing here. If you don't have the right, some right, to educate your children, you don't have any rights. Okay. Now, that's not to say that you have the sole right to educate your children. This, I think, is where conservatives go a little too far. This is where, actually, Hillary makes a point, at least in the title she chose for one of her books, even though she is perverting and misusing the aphorism that she is borrowing. It does, in fact, take a village to raise a child. Children are not only educated by mommy and daddy. Children inevitably are educated by their community. That's just what happens. Kids are just sponges. They take in everything. If something's on the TV, that's going to be educating your kids. If they're hearing something from their friends in the neighborhood, that's going to educate the kids. If they're paying any attention whatsoever in school, that's going to educate your kids. Kids are just sucking in information and behaviors and a moral view and a whole perspective on the world, all right? And so we need to defend our right as parents to have some choice in the matter. But that's not enough. We actually have to go further and wield political power, as people like Glenn Youngkin and especially Ron DeSantis have done, wield that political power to force a certain type of education on the political community. We have to force it. We have to coerce it. I know that conservatives sometimes are afraid of using those words, but all education is coercive. That's what education is. When the teacher says, Johnny, do your homework or you get a bad grade, Johnny, repeat after me, the American Revolution began in 1776. That's a fact. You have to repeat that fact. And if you don't repeat that fact, then you're going to get detention. Education is coercive. It has to be. And it's a paradoxical, because the purpose of education is to liberate oneself from the base passions and from our sort of slavishness that we're born into in this world of sin and death, and to bring our base appetites under line and into accord with our rational will, and this is why we call it the liberal arts, right? To make sense of our freedom and to use it in a way that is edifying and not debasing and not licentious. So that's the purpose of it. But in order to do that, we have to be coerced. And there's only so much time in a classroom, and there are only so many days in the school year. And so you've got to make choices about what to teach. Every minute that you're teaching Maya Kababi genderqueer, you are not teaching Shakespeare or civics or the Bible. I guess we're not allowed to teach the Bible anymore, or anything else that would be edifying. And so you've got to say, no Maya Kababi, no genderqueer, no critical race theory. We are banning that from the classroom. We are wielding the power of the state to coerce that out of the classroom. Yes to Shakespeare and math and science and true history and all the rest of it. We have to do that. In our private lives, yes, in our political lives as well. The Republicans who get that are the ones who are going to be successful. Right now, head on over to goodranchers.com/Knowles. I love spending the holidays with my family, and one of the ways I like to do that is with delicious meat from Good Ranchers. As a special gift to our listeners this holiday season, Good Ranchers is giving away 2 Black Angus New York strip steaks free with your order. These are 2 12-ounce steakhouse quality cuts. That's a $70 value for free. You don't want to miss this offer. Let me tell you why. Black Angus tastes better and is more tender than any other beef. Black Angus meat is marbled in such a way that the fat is distributed thinly and evenly. This marbling gives it a consistent flavor that you don't get with other meats. Plus, the Black Angus from Good Ranchers is hand-cut and trimmed by expert butchers, so you know every piece is going to be exquisite. While grocery store meat prices are on the rise, Good Ranchers is dedicated to helping you save as much as possible. If you subscribe to Good Ranchers today, you can lock in your price and avoid these insanely high prices at the grocery store and get some free meat while you're at it. Go to goodranchers.com/Knowles. Use code Knowles at checkout for this special offer. That is goodranchers.com/Knowles for 2 Black Angus New York strip steaks with your order for free. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
Hey, Michael. Name's John. Big fan of the show. Listen every day. I have a question. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, not a Catholic, but a Christian. I hope you can forgive me and welcome me in. But we talk a lot about God-given rights on the right, especially. We really like to cite those as a means for policy and whatever else that follows. But I'm just struggling with the idea of what are God-given rights. Where do they come from? Where do we learn where they are? It's obviously not a very effective argument to use against someone who doesn't believe in God. But aside from that, I don't see anywhere in the Bible that it says God gives you these rights, and if someone violates them, this happens. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe it's interpretation based, but I just wanted to hear about your thoughts on that. I think it's a very interesting conversation that nobody seems to have, despite everybody always citing human rights when they want to get things done a certain way. Thanks a lot.
Certainly is very interesting. You'll notice that I don't use that language very much. It is true. Probably most conservative public figures prattle on and on and on about God-given rights left and right. And the libs talk about human rights left and right because they don't believe in God. But I don't really use that language because that language comes largely out of the Enlightenment and comes largely out of the early days of liberalism. And you say, things that are called God-given rights, I don't really see them popping up in the Bible or in the Christian tradition, and that's true. I forget if it was me or a friend of mine, we both got to see Scalia when we were students. And one of us asked Scalia, do you believe in natural rights? So important to, certainly at that time, the way that conservatives were talking about the country. Do you believe in natural rights? And he said, I believe in the natural law. Because the idea of politics from the perspective of rights, whether they be positive rights or negative rights, human rights or God-given rights. But the whole idea of politics from the perspective of rights is a liberal idea. It's not a very conservative idea. The conservative perspective is politics from the perspective of duty and obligation and tradition and wisdom and justice and prudence. And so I think it would be much more, and I agree with you also, just as a practical matter, those phrases are not particularly persuasive. We can go on and on all day and say, well, I've got a God-given right to free speech, whatever that means. I don't even know really what that means. Or the libs can say, I've got a human right to, chop off all my genitals and make you pay for it and dye my hair purple and do whatever, but that doesn't really persuade anybody. The natural law, however, is different because the natural law from which we derive a concept of natural rights, but the natural law is just the moral reality that we can perceive through the use of our natural reason and our moral conscience. And that is much more persuasive because people know that it's wrong to commit murder. Wherever you go, doesn't matter if they've read the Bible, people just know it's wrong to commit murder. We know that certain behaviors are just wrong. We have a kind of wisdom of repugnance. We have a moral conscience with which we are mercifully endowed. And so I think that perspective is going to be much more persuasive. The rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it, okay? Because this is Fake Headline Friday. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.